The focus of the intense rain has moved north to Mackay and the Wide Bay, where more than 300 millimetres has fallen in some centres.
At Eton, west of Mackay, 24 hours of rain. It's taken over roads, swallowed cars and inundated cane fields. In low-lying areas, there's water as far as the eye can see. More than 300 millimetres fell across parts of the region by 9 o'clock this morning, and it's not over yet.
Forecasters are also monitoring the possibility of a cyclone forming in the Coral Sea.
At least 9 people have been found dead following a powerful blizzard that swept through the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido over the weekend. Rescue workers near the town of Nakashibetsu uncovered a family of 4. All died in their car as it was engulfed in snow. In the same town, a 23-year-old woman was found frozen to death near her stalled car. In the town of Yubetsu, a 53-year-old man was found dead in a snowy field. He had wrapped his body around his 9-year-old daughter to protect her from the cold.
Residents of the Florida town where a sinkhole claimed a man's life have a new reason to be nervous. A second sinkhole has appeared in Sethner, Florida.
Growing concerns tonight over several large sinkholes in San Francisco's West Portal neighborhood.
Tonight, winds are howling along the East Coast. Low-lying areas in New Jersey already underwater, now under voluntary evacuations.
See how big this massive snowstorm is tonight. There it is on the East Coast, the storm as seen from space.
We are getting tremendous wind off the ocean here. The ocean that, by the way, is getting closer.
Wind so strong, the federal government shut down.
It struck New England after churning past New Jersey, where winds of up to 70 miles an hour caused tidal flooding that left some shoreline communities underwater.
Developing tonight, Florida could soon be in for a major invasion of mega mosquitoes. These aren't just ordinary bugs. They're big. They actually sting when they bite.
Scientists say they are coming this summer. Horror movies have built plots around supersized insects for years, but this time, real research tells us giant mosquitoes 20 times the size of what you're used to could invade Central Florida in just a few months.
There is another war taking place in the Middle East, and this one has nothing to do with brutal dictators, terrorism, or a people's occupied land. This war has to do with rats, and we're not talking about just any rats. We're talking about very large rats, some as heavy as 5 kilograms. That's about 11 pounds. Rats as big as cats. Millions of them roaming around Tehran, according to officials. The problem's so serious that Iran has literally declared war on these rodents. They've called out the army sniper units in an effort to pick off these rats, one rodent at a time. Why are these rats getting so big? 2 schools of thought. Some say the rats have become immune to the rat poison the city is using, and the chemicals inside their body is causing them to mutate.
A day to most definitely stay out of the water. A shark warning closing beaches in the United States. Well, one shark off the south coast of Florida, but thousands of them.
Now, we want to show you the fast and urgent fight underway by doctors in states across this country tonight. They are trying to contain a new bacteria, kind of ordinary bacteria antibiotics don't reach, and even the CDC has called it a nightmare.
These almost untreatable superbugs alter other bacteria so that they fight off drugs as well.
It's resistant to virtually all antibiotics. So when an individual gets this microbe and it invades the blood or invades tissue, curing them becomes very difficult.
Fisheries experts are investigating what caused the death of thousands of fish on the Eyre Peninsula. The juvenile leather jackets have washed up along a 10-kilometre stretch of beaches south of Port Neal over the last week.
Absolutely incredible. I've never seen a fish kill like it in all my time travelling around the countryside.
A rare comet makes its debut in the northern hemisphere, visible to the naked eye. It will give you the best view you could have in years. In fact, some astronomers are calling 2013 the year of the comet. as they identify more and more of these flying through space. Does it, though, raise questions about our safety here on Earth?
Dead pigs have been found floating in a river near Shanghai. Officials have launched an investigation. They say there is no evidence the pigs were dumped or had been infected. Water quality tests are now being carried out as the river supplies Shanghai residents with their drinking water.
More than 12,000 dead pigs found floating in one of China's main rivers.
Locals have been finding large numbers of dead pigs floating in their waters. Nobody seems to know why they've died or how they got there.
The Israeli Agriculture Ministry said a locust swarm of biblical proportions had crossed into Israel from Egypt and said it was spraying pesticides to try to contain the problem 2 weeks ahead of the Passover holiday.
This particular group was swept in from Egypt. Locust invasion is in full swing with just 2 weeks to go before Passover. That holiday celebrates the biblical story of the ancient Jews leaving Egypt after Egypt was struck with 10 plagues. The 8th plague was the plague of locusts.
It's happening again. A big space rock the size of a city block is expected to head our way next hour. We know that this meteor exploded over Russia just a month ago, last month, and now we have this, and there was an asteroid last weekend. Is this just sort of a weird time, and should we be concerned about a potential impact?
And manatees along the southwest coast of Florida are dying in record numbers.
Officials say this is a catastrophe, as they sometimes find as many as 10 dead manatees a day. Already in just 2 months, they're approaching the record killed in an entire year.
And we have breaking news out west. A magnitude 5.1 earthquake has rattled a large section of Southern California. There are reports of aftershocks.
Mark Mihal and some friends were playing around at the Ambrier golf course last Friday when suddenly Mihal was missing. When his playing partners heard his calls for help, they realized that he'd been swallowed by a sinkhole.
As his golf buddies looked on in disbelief, Mihal found himself being sucked 18 feet under the ground, fracturing his shoulder.
Dead fish are washing up on the shores of Rio de Janeiro's main lagoon, and no one is quite sure why.
The Rodrigo de Freitas lagoon used to be teeming with life, but not anymore. It seems that everything that used to thrive in the water has been killed.
America has issued a blunt new warning tonight to Iran about nuclear weapons.
And sharp words today about what the administration sees as America's two greatest threats, Iran and Syria. Time is running out for a peaceful solution to that nation's nuclear ambitions.
Big nations can't bluff, and presidents of the United States cannot and do not bluff. And President Barack Obama is not bluffing.
Now to North Korea, a nation that has nuclear weapons and is tonight threatening to use them against the United States, vowing to attack Washington and engulf the nation's capital, quote, in a sea of flames. As you can imagine, this outburst has prompted a strong response from the White House.
The United States is bolstering its missile defense on the West Coast by nearly 50% because of the intensifying threat posed by the secretive nation.
Breaking news now from the war in Syria, and this could be significant. Reports that chemical weapons have been used in that conflict. 25 are dead in a rebel chemical attack in northern Syria.
Heavy rains in Brazil triggered devastating mudslides on Monday, killing at least 16 people. The mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro state was hit by 24 hours of continuous rainfall. More than a month's worth of rain fell in just 24 hours.
Hailstorms with hail the size of eggs have struck southern China. The storm with wind gusts of more than 100 miles per hour have left a trail of destruction in the province of Guangdong.
An unusual tornado and hailstorm has killed 24 people in southern China's Guangdong province. Local officials say 272 people were injured, with 158 of them hospitalized. The wild combination of thunderstorm, hail, and a tornado hit the region with gusting winds of 110 miles an hour. Hailstone the size of golf balls and eggs smashed windshields, as this was the strongest tornado to hit the city since record-keeping began.
A discovery off the coast of Chile that has baffled authorities. Thousands of langoustines washed up in central Concepcion province. Beaches have been covered red as the Dublin Bay prawns were found. Investigators are trying to find out what has killed so many crustaceans in this case.
Thousands of dead fish have washed up on Adelaide's southern beaches.
It's Adelaide's turn. Little leather jackets litter the shore, just like Eyre Peninsula beaches earlier this month. Locals have observed them from Christie's Beach south to Maslands.
Never seen it before and not sure why.
Yeah, wondering about what the cause is.
At least 80 people were injured, too critically, as a series of devastating tornadoes ripped across 2 states. The twisters tore through towns in New South Wales and Victoria, destroying dozens of homes. The trail of damage stretched 40 kilometres.
They were watching the clouds and saw it forming.
Coming for us.
Daniel Clark and his mate wouldn't be laughing for long. Their encounter with this force of nature just kept getting closer and closer.
Oh, stop. Power line just went.
It was building in strength, in speed. It was time to go. With it almost on top of them, they spin the car around and are driving for their lives, hammered by debris.
Get going.
Racing to flee a tornado, packing winds of up to 250 kilometres an hour.
Unbelievable. I can't even describe how crazy it was to be amongst it.
A mini tornado just happening between the trees. This is like crazy. Oh my God. Look at the tornado!
Along the border, several twisters touched down after 7 o'clock last night.
Whoa! That is insane!
And this was the result. Roofs, fences, homes were ripped to pieces. This was a demolition.
Weather forecasters say twisters with such force are rare in Victoria.
Britain is preparing to shiver through its coldest March weekend in 50 years. Blizzard-like conditions have claimed at least one life.
This is springtime in Britain. The calendar may say winter is over, but the weather says otherwise. A huge swathe of the country is under snow, and the forecasters say there's more to come. Britain is being told to brace itself. It's hard to believe British summertime begins in just over a week, because for much of Britain, this is a winter that just won't end.
We're just outside Denver. As someone said to me today on the way into work, where is spring? More than half the country getting hit with this newest nasty storm. Hundreds of miles of roads already shut down from Colorado to Kansas tonight. Snow and ice is returning to windshields across America tonight, with winter storm warnings and watches up across more than a dozen states now. And in the South this evening, fears of tornadoes because of all this.
It's the winter that just won't release us from its icy grip.
Begin with some breaking news tonight. A flash of light that experts are saying was probably a meteor was seen streaking across the sky along the East Coast. There are reports from Virginia up to Boston and beyond. More reports are coming in tonight. It happened just after 8 o'clock.
There are at least 350 reports of this possible meteor.
While there's been heavy snow in parts of Europe, including the UK, in Kiev it's been so bad that a state of emergency has been declared. 1 month's snowfall, which is about half a metre, has covered the Ukrainian capital in just 24 hours. The city's paralysed.
A man is fighting for life after being crushed by a tree branch during last night's severe storms in southeast Queensland. Several other people were hurt and dozens of homes damaged when the storm hit with fierce winds and thousands of lightning strikes.
Bangladesh is reeling after a powerful tornado tore through villages in the east of the country. The latest reports are that 20 people are dead, 200 are injured and hundreds more are without homes.
More than 20 people were killed and hundreds injured. The ferocity of the wind has left many villagers in shock. The wind was so powerful, even trucks were overturned.
severe storm this evening, more than half of the country in its path before it's over. And this video just in tonight from Orlando, Florida. Look and listen to this. Extreme winds blowing right through those front doors at a Lowe's store, blowing shopping carts like toys. You can see the heavy rains outside. In the west tonight, the storm dropping more than a foot of snow in parts of Colorado. Then moving on to Kansas City.
Very unpleasant form of deja vu. Again, a dangerous sinkhole opening up in a residential neighborhood in Florida, and this is going on right near where the sinkhole swallowed a man asleep in his bed.
Record amounts of snow are still falling, and just watch. We have a time-lapse video of the snow piling up and continuing to pile up overnight in St. Louis. And it just keeps coming in parts of the country.
We've got some sheep under the drift here. We've been lifting about 40 yesterday digging them out. So what I'm doing is I'm using the dog now. He'll use his nose, and hopefully we'll see an air pocket. It's third day for some of these sheep, and they're heavily pregnant. They're weakened. They're carrying a lot of snow on them. And this is a disaster. It's a disaster for rural farmers out here on the mountain. You know, my family's been collecting sheep the other day. They've got 150 missing. We haven't counted ours. So this is the problem that we're looking at. We don't know what's under all this. We're just finding the odd one. There could be hundreds of sheep lost in Wales. We've dug 40 out yesterday. We'll dig a few out today. You know, this is all we've got is a spade and just brute force, you know, brute power. It's a killer. It is an absolute killer. I've never seen anything like this. It's just bloody heartbreaking. How many more? I don't know.
Visitors to Adelaide's premier beach aren't quite sure what to make of it.
Something totally new, never seen this before.
Hundreds of tons of seagrass washed up onto the beach over the weekend, covering the shoreline. The council's been under the pump trying to clear up the beach before Easter. It's not the only part of the coast that's fallen foul to the Great Brown Plague. Beaches on Fleurieu Peninsula have been coated with seagrass as well. Experts believe the big wash-up of seagrass, fish and dolphins in the past few weeks is no coincidence.
The fact that it's occurring in lots of different bits of the South Australian coastline around the same sort of time points to something that's a big cause.
And just in, a magnitude 6.2 earthquake has just struck in Guatemala, only about 6 miles to the southeast of its capital city. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
A magnitude 5.5 earthquake hit the southwest of Pinotepa Nacional on the Pacific coast of Mexico. Less than 10 minutes later, a second quake hit with magnitude 5.1.
An earthquake measuring 6.1 on the Richter scale has struck Taiwan. There are reports of a 72-year-old woman being killed by a collapsed temple wall. At least 19 people have been injured.
Dramatic upheaval in the earth today on a small island off the coast of Washington state. Residents say it began with a mysterious sound, almost like thunder, and then something terrifying. The earth seemed to crack open.
It was just before 4 o'clock in the morning when the slide hit with such force, homeowners thought it must be a massive earthquake.
I looked out and noticed that we had no more trees blocking the view, and half the yard was gone.
One home was swept away and nearly 3 dozen are now evacuated.
A sinkhole suddenly opens up, swallowing a security guard. The horrifying moment captured by cameras in Shenzhen City, China. Yang Shibing was buried as people tried to reach him.
2 people have been killed and another seriously injured after a wall collapsed in Melbourne on Thursday. Witnesses said there was a sudden gust of wind.
I heard this loud noise, this really loud noise, like a thunder, like bam, like that, and I saw dust everywhere and I rushed out. There were people running towards the wall. It was really bad. It was like a war zone.
Police believe it was toppled by a sudden squall of wind which hit the city between 2:30 and 3, peaking at 102 kilometres an hour.
The UN is appealing for more than $41 million to eliminate a severe plague of locusts in Madagascar. Half of the money is needed by June to try to save the country's crop production. Around half of Madagascar is currently infested, with each swarm made up of billions of insects.
American stealth bombers have just finished practicing an attack on the Korean peninsula. The B-2 bombers, capable of carrying nuclear weapons, flew 6,500 miles from Whiteman Air Force Base outside of Kansas City, Missouri, all the way to South Korea. Pilots then dropped inactive, inert bombs and then turned around and flew back home. This all comes as North Korea ramps up its threats.
A threat, for instance, to carry out a preemptive nuclear strike on the United States mainland.
North Korea is cutting its final official line of communication with South Korea, saying war could break out at any time. My heart is burning with vengeful thoughts, this man says. Such provocation can no longer be allowed. I'm ready to take part in a great war of justice to reduce the US mainland to ashes.
Southern suburbs beachgoers are demanding answers as dead fish continue to wash ashore.
The scale of the mystery continues to grow.
Thousands of fish are washing up dead.
The Indian Ocean island of Mauritius has been hit by severe floods. At least 10 people have been confirmed dead after over 150 millimeters of torrential rain lashed the low-lying capital of Port Louis in under 2 hours, and has now seen over half the monthly average rain for March in just one day.
Tsunami warning is in effect after a massive 7.5 magnitude earthquake hit off the southern coast of Alaska. Happened around 4 a.m. Eastern this morning. Officials urge anyone in the warning area to move inland and find higher ground.
We have some real breaking news to report at this hour. A tsunami alert has just been issued in the South Pacific after a magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck just northeast of Australia in the Solomon Islands.
Powerful earthquake measuring 6.9 hit Japan late on Saturday night.
Photographers capturing an incredible display in eastern Russia. 4 volcanoes they found were erupting at the same time, just over 100 miles apart.
Nobody's ever seen anything like this. 4 different volcanoes, 4 completely separate eruptions happening at the same time.
It's a great story about the photographers and how they basically stumbled on this, right?
Yeah, it turns out, I knew there were storm chasers. These guys are volcano chasers. They were on their way to a photo shoot in Dubai. They heard this eruption was going on. They canceled it, hired a daredevil helicopter pilot who drove them right into the updraft of hot air over the volcano, and they're walking over hot lava until their boots were smoking to get these shots.
Now on our top story, that magnitude 7.8 earthquake which struck the Iranian-Pakistani border. Early reports say there have been fatalities. Iranian officials say they expect deaths to be in the hundreds.
air today as it continued a series of recent eruptions.
You felt it everywhere from Cape May to Manahawkin, Woodbine to North Wildwood. And all of you from Facebook to Twitter and all over social media are wondering what was that rumble through South Jersey this afternoon. Cape May County Emergency Management tells Fox 29 the South Jersey shaking was centered in Wildwood.
But tonight, we still don't know exactly what caused it. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Carrie Barrett.
It's quite the mystery. I'm Thomas Drayton. Good to have you with us. Right now, the military and the USGS aren't helping to explain it either.
And then with the terrible story I heard about the sinkholes, that's another thing that runs through your mind.
She's talking about a sinkhole, rumors of an earthquake, a sonic boom flooded social media when this happened. None of that confirmed. In fact, no word on what caused this. Reporting live in Woodbine, New Jersey, Shawnette Wilson, Fox 29 News.
Well, I can tell you this, people are talking about it, Shawnette. In fact, our Fox 29 Facebook fan felt the shaking all over. Jamie said she felt it in Wildwood Crest. Chantel said she felt it twice in Galloway. Judy heard the boom in Malaga, but no shaking, and Julie said she felt it in Linwood, New Jersey.
Well, we've been trying to get answers all day about what exactly this was, but so far, no one seems to know. You can see the windows vibrating in this surveillance video from Roger Wilco Liquor on Wellington Avenue in Ventnor, then the stunned reaction of employees inside. This happened shortly after 3 Tuesday afternoon, and people throughout Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties say they felt it. Now, the shore region was shaken last Wednesday by a similar incident, which was also recorded at the liquor store and remains a mystery as well. We checked with the U.S. Geological Survey. They say there haven't been any earthquakes here. The military tells us they weren't doing any exercises in the area either. Luckily, we haven't gotten any reports of damage or injuries.
Talking about the earthquakes. They hit Oklahoma early this morning. Overnight from 2 a.m. to the latest one at 5:15. News 9's Rusty Surratt is live for us this morning.
5 earthquakes rocking central and northeast Oklahoma, and these things were felt all the way from here in Oklahoma City down south to Chickasha, Weatherford, Fairview, Stillwater, even on over to Tulsa. We've got a timeline and a map to kind of give you an idea of where and when all of this started, and it was at about 1:45 this morning was the very first one. That was an estimated 3 miles west of Chandler. The U.S. Geological Survey saying that was a 3.0. 15 minutes later, right at 2 this morning, a very strong 4.3 earthquake shook the Oklahoma City metro area. This is the big one that most everyone felt at about 2 a.m.
Melody Pettit, thanks for joining us. We're following a developing story right now that has people in several counties in our viewing area wondering, what was that sound? Dozens of you have let us know about a loud boom or explosion between 6:30 and 8:30 tonight. We've received reports about it from Mount Vernon, Nixa, Ozark, Aurora, and Reed Spring, but so far authorities say they've been unable to determine the source of the blast. We can rule out an earthquake at this point. The last one recorded anywhere near us was more than 12 hours ago near Oklahoma City.
It's not just hot out there, it's record-breaking hot. This spring was the hottest since the government began keeping records in 1895. 150 million Americans have spent some portion of the past week under a heat warning. In tiny Norton, Kansas last week, it hit 118 degrees, hotter than Death Valley.
Residents in Australia are feeling the heat as the temperature in Sydney hits a record high. The mercury rose up to 114.4 degrees in Sydney and to almost 116 degrees at the city's airport.
Well, parts of Australia are on track for a record March heat wave. National meteorologist David Brown is, of course, keeping across it. Brownie, it seems summer's not quite over for some of us.
Yeah, that's right, Beck, and good afternoon. In fact, most of southeast Australia is looking at a record heat wave for this time of year.
Australia's record-breaking heat wave is continuing to fuel outbreaks of wildfires across scores of thousands of hectares in the southeast of the country.
(3,165 record high temperatures in the month of June. This as we just start July. And take a look at those red dots. The fiery red dots are in the middle of all those record high temperatures that you see. The yellow ones represent the 3,000. Those red dots are the warmest temperatures ever in cities. Folks, this has never happened before. Nashville, Tennessee, 109 degrees. Atlanta, Georgia, 106. Look at Raleigh at 105. We were on pace with the temperatures that were in Saudi Arabia and deserts all over the country, with some of the hottest temperatures in the world. Now, with that heat came an awful lot of storms. About 1,000 storms kicked off on Friday, and then we had 800 yesterday. Our Ginger Z is in Arlington. We're Ginger, right where you are. My family, part of the millions of folks who spent the weekend without power this morning. Good morning, Ginger.
Good morning, Sam, and good morning, everyone. This is one of so many neighborhoods, not only in Virginia, where you see trees and the power lines, a virtual minefield in the streets, but anywhere from the Carolinas to Ohio. They had round after round of severe storms, and now the extreme heat.
Powerful winds up to 90 miles per hour blew through Chicago late Sunday. It came with teeming rain and hail. The storms dropped Chicago's temperature by 20 degrees quick, but did little to cool off the rest of the country, still sweating it out. This morning, at least 3 million homes are without power across 7 states. At least 14 confirmed dead, all after this powerful line of storms blew through from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic Friday.
Oh my God!
The storms did the usual, but did it big, taking down power lines, uprooting trees, and forcing a weekend of cleanup, with temps climbing as high as 106 degrees in Atlanta, breaking the all-time record high.
Big chill, 133 million Americans in this together. All day, these pictures were streaming into our newsroom. Wisconsin, Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. All of us apparently doing anything we could to stay warm. Take a look at that. In fact, it was so cold today, the Great Lakes had a wind chill of -40, which feels colder than the North Pole.
Over 2/3 of the country, along with some weird extremes. It's expected to be 75 degrees colder in Maine this week than it was last week. 75 degrees, and this latest push of Arctic air has already made its way all the way south to Florida. NBC's Kevin Tibbles is with us from the grip of it in Chicago. Kevin, good evening.
Brian, tonight bitter cold and treacherous winds have much of the country hunkering down, and this blast of winter is likely to last through to the weekend. Frigid, treacherous, Siberian, all describe Erie, Pennsylvania.
The wind is vicious here. The wind chill is absolutely freezing.
It is so cold in parts of the UK right now, even the sheep are shivering. Farmers struggle with conditions far colder than they're used to in March. With lambing season here, they are losing livestock fast.
There's probably at least 60 ewes that have gone. As far as the lambs are concerned, well, that could be in the hundreds.
Power cables are down. Thousands have been without electricity in areas of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. This has been the coldest March for 50 years.
Polar scientists are trying to work out whether shrinking sea ice is linked to record cold temperatures in Britain and Northern Europe.
Take a look at this amazing satellite picture of the blizzard of 2013. You can see why this snowstorm paralyzed some of the most heavily populated areas of this country. The stats are now coming in, and they are very impressive. The worst hit town, Hamden, Connecticut, where they got an astonishing 40 inches. It was a record breaker in Portland, Maine, a place used to snowstorms. They got nearly 32 inches from this one. And to give you a sense of the power of this storm, the winds were as strong as a Category 1 hurricane with gusts up to 83 miles an hour on the Cape. That's Cape Cod. And speaking of Massachusetts, that's where meteorologist Ginger Z is this morning. She's in Boston. Hey, Ginger, good morning.
Good morning to you, Dan. You know, Boston was one of the areas hardest hit and record-making here. It was the 5th largest snowfall on record.
Overnight, the snowstorm intensified, blanketing parts of Long Island under more than a foot of snow.
Okay, go. Push it. Go.
Cars stranded on the Long Island Expressway were stopped dead in their tracks when road conditions.
Urgent now, and just in, a magnitude 6.2 earthquake has just struck in Guatemala, only about 6 miles to the southeast of its capital city. That's according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Keep in mind, experts warn a magnitude 6 quake could trigger significant damage to cities and other very populated areas.
An earthquake struck Mexico this morning. The U.S. Geological Survey said a magnitude 5.5 earthquake hit the southwest of Pinotepa Nacional on the Pacific coast of Mexico. Less than 10 minutes later, a second quake hit with magnitude 5.1.
It was about 230 miles southeast of Mexico City. So as we saw in some of the video that's coming online now, the early warning system there in Mexico was able to alert people that some shaking was on its way. Video showed swaying of buildings, thousands of people evacuating out into the streets.
Of the quake, buildings damaged across a wide area. The quake struck at just before 8 o'clock in the morning, local time. The force of it made the earth move at up to 10 centimeters per second.
Survivors are still being found and rescued 2 days and a night after this earthquake hit. Thousands of soldiers with military helicopters that are now ambulances are taking the injured out. The death toll appears to have stopped rising significantly, but there are an alarming number of wounded.
Northeast is still recovering from Superstorm Sandy. It killed 147 people and left $50 billion in damage. A new forecast warns this year's hurricane season could be even worse. Professor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at the City University of New York. He's also a CBS This Morning contributor. Good morning.
Morning.
So how worried should we be about this season's forecast?
Well, this is a wake-up call. As Yogi Berra once said, it's deja vu all over again. We're going to be hitting hurricane season in 2 more months. And this new report from Colorado State University says there's a 72% chance of a major hurricane hitting the United States this season, a 50% increase in the frequency and number of these hurricanes compared to the 1980s and 1990s. This could be maybe a new normal. And we have to be prepared for Hurricane Sandy 2.0.
Telling an incredible story about something most people will never see. 4 different lightning strikes in the same spot. Sam Sweeney spent the day with those who saw it and has the unbelievable video.
They say lightning never strikes twice in the same spot. But how about 4 times?
It was definitely the closest I've ever seen a lightning strike.
This surveillance video caught everything on tape. Lieutenant Jay Kircher says he and his crew were sitting in the operations center when they heard the crack and then saw 4 lightning bolts come down and make a meteor-like hole right in the center of the tarmac.
Look at this. You can see multiple lightning bolts here, right?
Well, scientists have just discovered that lightning isn't always visible. It's this phenomenon called dark lightning, and apparently it's just as powerful.
If you get hit by a dark lightning strike, you won't die, at least not immediately, because it's a radiation strike, not a lightning or bolt strike. And the main way that you would ever get hit by this is if you're flying through a thunderstorm. Now, most airplanes fly around the storms, so there's no real risk. But if your plane gets hit by one of these dark lightning strikes, it's about 1 out of 1,000 strikes would be a dark strike. You would see maybe a small purple haze around the plane, and you would get a lifetime supply of radiation in less than 1 second.
Dude, I got that on video. Holy. Yes! I've got a video.
Ancient Egyptian plagues return. That cloud back there, you see them coming. For folks that don't believe that the Bible is real, the Bible don't lie. These things are so big they look like little birds.
A 5.5 magnitude earthquake in China's southwestern Yunnan province has injured at least 30 people on Sunday. 3 of the injured are reportedly in serious condition. According to state media, the quake destroyed almost 1,800 homes and damaged more than 83,000 others. Over 30 aftershocks have been reported.
Here and across the country, mysterious booming noises that for the most part have gone unexplained. The booms have shaken homes and startled neighbors. Tonight, News 4's Rachel Kingston is asking what's really going on.
Trying to get the answer to that question for the last month. No one seems to know what is causing these weird booms. Not police, not scientists, not even the military. Are they man-made or natural? You're about to see the best evidence we've gathered, and we'll let you decide. Sunday, January 13th, 6:15 p.m. Chautauqua County Dispatch is inundated with calls about a loud boom shaking houses and rattling nerves across the southern part of the county. Viewers in Jamestown, Lakewood, Busti, Kennedy, Delavan, Asheville, and elsewhere told News 4 the deep rumbling noise sounded like thunder, cannons firing, or an explosion. In the southern Erie County town of Evans, Police Chief Ernest Masulo confirms they experienced a boom on Friday, January 18th.
Approximately 4:23 in the afternoon, we started receiving phone calls of a loud noise. Some of the people on the call described it as an explosion. Some described it as a boom.
911, what's your emergency? Yeah, hi. We don't know, actually. There was a really loud boom. It sounded like it come from the back of our house. Well, we just heard it here at the town hall, but we have no idea what it is.
Could you please tell me, did you hear that noise?
Yes, we...
Loud explosion?
Yes, we did.
I don't see anything. It just, like, scared the heck out of me.
These phenomena are not unique to Western New York. People all over the United States are hearing and feeling mysterious loud booms. Investigative reporter Linda Moulton Howe began investigating them in 2011. Just since October, Howe has documented booms in 25 different regions across the country.
That people would describe as being something that shook either their bottoms of their feet, their legs, their houses, their windows. Many of the current reports have been that something is coming from the sky.
Some of these booms have been accompanied by huge bright flashes of light, including this one, captured by a security camera in Salem, Massachusetts on January 5th. Is something bigger going on that even local authorities and scientists aren't aware of?
We did check all the specific flight times. We did not have any aircraft in the air over that area at that time.
There was not an earthquake. There was not a mine collapse. I didn't even see any quarry blasting going on.
And we're unable to come up with any plausible explanation on what the noise was.
The geologists say it's not in the ground. The Air Force says it's not in the air. The astronomers say it's not from space. So we're running out of options.
Millions of Americans bracing for the impact, everything from stalled trains and planes to tornadoes. And here is the map, an area from the Florida Panhandle to New York under a severe weather warning. ABC's Steve Osensami is outside Atlanta tonight in Adairsville, Georgia, where one powerful tornado has already torn through town.
An hour north of Atlanta, an amazing picture. The sky was falling.
We've got debris now flying to the left and center of this system. The sirens have been going off here. The wind is picking up along with the rain.
Saturday morning as hundreds of thousands wake up to sheer devastation. Just take a look at this unbelievable destruction from the ferocious weather that raked through the heart of the country. Homes, schools, and businesses, entire towns all gone, flattened in a flash. This massive storm spawned more tornadoes in one day than we usually see in an entire month, all the way from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes.
Huge storm. You can see it right there on the map. Here's what we know right now. At least 29 people dead, 13 in Indiana, 14 in Kentucky, and 2 in Ohio. This is the second round of killer tornadoes just this week.
95 tornadoes ripped through yesterday. If those are all confirmed reports, this would be the greatest tornado day, one-day event in March for all history.
Is official, 2012 was the hottest year in the United States since weather scientists started keeping records, and hotter not by a little but by a landslide.
The extraordinary heat. Let's take you straight to the map this evening. Look at the deepest reds on the map. 45 states with temperatures 90 and above, and as you can see, so many in triple digits tonight. And look at this, even more telling, more than 3,100 heat records broken in the last month alone.
The worst Arctic storm systems to hit a wide section of the country in years. It has gone from dangerous now to deadly.
Minnesota's wind chills could be as low as 50. That's 50 below with a...
This is scale. This winter it has received more than 5.5 meters of snow, the most ever recorded anywhere in Japan.
First to the Solomon Islands, where police say at least 6 people, including one child, have been killed after the country was hit by an earthquake and tsunami. The magnitude 8 quake hit just before lunchtime, causing major damage to at least 3 villages in Santa Cruz in the east of the country. It also caused a Pacific-wide tsunami alert to be put into effect.
That several villages have been destroyed in the Solomons after an earthquake and tsunami struck at a depth of 5.8 kilometres near the Santa Cruz Islands.
It's happening again. A big space rock the size of a city block is expected to head our way next hour. This meteor exploded over Russia just a month ago, last month, and now we have this, and there was an asteroid last weekend. How common are these objects? Is this just sort of a weird time, and should we be concerned about a potential impact?
A big and brilliant comet arriving in November 2013. It could potentially be 15 times brighter than the moon and visible in broad daylight over the U.S.